Hi everybody, and welcome back to Plastic Models by a Regular Dude and part 3 of the Airfix 1/48 scale Supermarine Spitfire Mark 12. Okay, so a quick review. Last time on part 2, I did steps 1 through 11 minus the painting, which basically completed the cockpit components. So in this episode, the plan is to paint the cockpit components, and also, while I'm at it, paint the inside of the fuselage area, the inside of the fuselage cockpit area. So in looking at there are some ejector pin marks, but they're going to be completely concealed by the cockpit, so I'm not going to bother clearing those out, specifically right there, which will be totally underneath the seat, and then the other ones are in areas that aren't exposed anyway. So that's the plan. So the paint I'm going to use, I'm not going to prime this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to spray it first with, I have some black, Tamiya black XII mixed with an equal part of X22 clear by Tamiya, and then 2 parts X20A thinner, and that kind of gives me a semi-gloss color. So that is what I'm going to use for kind of my primer base coat. It's just basically going to be a base coat, so whenever I spray the green over it, it'll give it something a little bit to adhere to, and it will also serve as the color for the instrument panel. So let's get ready. Again, I'm going to use my Iwata HP M2 single action airbrush. Okay, here we go. As far as single action airbrushes go, this one is really nice. I dig it. It is really good. Very consistent, very easy to clean. Very easy to assemble and disassemble. Now, a lot of this that I'm spraying is not even going to be seen, but spray it anyway. And like I said, again, this is just kind of a primer coat. So in order not to bore you, I'll continue on painting the rest of this and then come back once it's all sprayed with the black. All right, so for the interior, I said I was going to use something else, but I have since modified what I'm going to use. I'm going to use XF71 for the interior green. Reason being is this is a little bit darker than the XF21. So right or wrong, I think this one's a little bit closer. But here's the way I usually mix it up if I'm going to put clear in my paint. First, I make sure I stir up the base color really well with one of these stir sticks. The reason I use a stir stick is because I can scrape the bottom really good. I do not like to shake my paint bottles because I like to minimize the amount of paint that gets up on the lid, which is kind of weird, I agree, but that's me. So I mix it up really good. Then, using my dedicated dropper for X20A. Let's see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using 1 part green, 1 part X22 clear, 2 parts thinner. So let's start with 10 micromilliliters or whatever it is. Thinner first. I like to put the thinner in first because that way paint just doesn't automatically sink to the bottom. So I do that. Then I will use 0.5 milliliters paint. And then I will use 0.5 milliliters of clear. And that'll give me a pretty good start. And then I just mark on the outside what it is. In this case, XF71 plus X22. That way I know what's in there. So I use the same ratios regardless of the color, because I found that to me a paint is really consistent in its viscosity. So I can use the same formula for all colors and still get the same thing as far as the paint. Then I just shake it. I try and shake it side to side without it getting up into the spout too much, because I don't like the inside of the lid to get all gooey and nasty. Now, the nice thing about these is in these little bottles, they'll last quite a while. I've got some paints I've mixed up like 6-7 months ago and they're still perfectly usable. So it's not a waste to do it. And then just do like everything else. Whoops. First thing I got to do is I got to mask the instrument panel. And all I'm doing to do that is using my Tamiya 18mm wide masking tape. Just putting it across like, whoops. Like, oh my goodness. Like this. Alright, so that's taped off, so we're ready to go here. So because this has clear in it, I can't just hose it on here. I've got to apply it in layers. Light coats. Don't want it to run or do anything weird. Set that aside and let it dry for a bit, and then come back to it. All right, so now I've got whoops, the paint done. So now I can move on to step 12. And in step 12, I need to determine if I'm going to have the cockpit open or closed. In this case, it's going to be open, which is this here. So what I need to do is I need to cut some parts off. So it looks like I need to remove on both fuselage areas. There is a faint line here and a faint line around the door, and then here as well, that needs to be removed, because I guess from what I've read, the thickness of the Malcolm hood, I think is what it's called, does not allow it to be open unless those parts are removed. So that's what I need to do. So what I'm going to do is using, let's see, what am I going to use? Well, I think I'm just going to use the back of an older knife blade and just score it thusly. So this is going to take a little bit, so I'm not going to video all of this. Then after getting it cut out, just sand it a little bit, smooth it out, and hope that it's totally covered by the canopy. Not too bad. So there's that. So I need to do the same thing on the other side. Plus I also need to do it to the door. So I'm going to carefully, again, there's a mark right there where I can cut it out. So I'm going to do the same thing. And there you have it. Nicely done. Nice thing is they give you another door that has interior hinge detail that will go into place. So I'll have to paint that green after I take care of those ejector pin marks. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the other side here, and then move on. Once I got both those sides cut out, then I put the fuselage together here so I can at least make sure that these two pieces are flush using a 220 grit sanding stick. So that's pretty good right there. Okay, so that is done. So then step 13, we have to make the determination again if I'm going to have the landing or the landing gear wheel extended or not. So again, since it's going to be sitting on the ground, I think it's going to be extended. For choice A, which is to have them open, I need to remove this and that right in there. So let me do one of them, and then I'll come back, take a look at it. All right, this is a good time to look ahead. So there's actually 3 options. Okay, for option A, which is to have these little tail wheel doors, let me zoom it in here, open, these need to be cut out. If I go ahead to 32, where the actual work is being done, is there are the open tail wheel doors. This is fully closed, and then this is closed with the wheel protruding. So like the wheel is protruding, and then they're closed around the door, I guess, or else maybe the tail wheel just sticks out all the time. I don't know. That's what I'm going with because I don't want to cut any more parts out of the fuselage. Call me lazy, whatever. So 13, I can totally skip. So with that in mind, next thing I need to do is I need to figure out what needs to be painted on the interior of this, on the cockpit side panels. Now first, I think, however, I am going to make sure this is all nice and smooth. And then I'm going to paint all these edges with the interior, cockpit interior color. Because actually, you know what? I'm going to jump ahead. I'm going to cut this part off here and make sure it looks right in position, which is the door. So I'm going to need to paint the interior color on that as well. So I want to make sure that's cleaned up. And then I need to gently scribe the detail back in there. So let's see if I can do it. There we go. I just kind of pressed it using this scribing and scraping tool here. Yeah, there we go. It looks good. Okay, then I want to make sure that it's good like that. So let's see. Okay, that looks good. Let's see how this fits here. Yeah, fits good. So, cool. So I'll glue that on later. So I need to clean that out, but I'll do that later on whenever it's actually time to do that part. I just want to make sure it fit. So I'm going to pull up some references and see what I need to do as far as painting the interior of this cockpit and the details. And I'm also going to spray these edges here with the interior green so they will look correct. All right, I looked at some references. I kind of have an idea of what needs to be painted black, or what needs to be painted in the cockpit. I'm going to start with this part here, and I got a few things I need to paint black. I need to paint the yoke here on the control stick. I need to paint the compass. Those need to be painted black. And then this cylinder here, and then this bit here, those need to be painted black. So I'm going to get my AK rubber black acrylic paint and put a couple of dots in there. Get my distilled water. Put that there. Select a paintbrush, which I think, let's see, which one shall I use? I'll use this one. This one's in pretty good shape. Basically thin this out a little bit. Start painting this stuff. So I'm going to do this part here first because it'll be the most difficult. And I'm not going to make you watch me paint all this stuff. I'm basically just going to demonstrate a little bit and then do the rest off camera. Alright, so I got the details painted I want to paint, so I'm going to set that aside. Then the next thing I need to do is I need to take care of the instrument panel. So in looking at photos of these things, there's not a whole lot of color going on. This part right here, you're not even gonna be able to see it, I don't think, is kind of an orangish color. And I'm gonna paint that just because I want to have a little bit of color on the control panel, or on the instrument panel. Okay, I don't know if you can see it, but I did paint it. I used Vallejo model color, yellow and red, and just for the record, it makes it more of a vermilion color than orange. Really weird. So next thing I want to do is I want to dry brush that a bit, and for that I'm going to use Vallejo neutral gray. I want to mix some white into it to lighten it up a bit. That gave me a nice lighter gray, so it should help pick out the highlights a little bit better. So what I need to do, try to get it mixed up, is I need to remove as much paint from this brush as humanly possible, because I don't want to smear it up. So let's see how that looks. The main reason I'm doing this is it's so black and there's not any other colors going on, is I want the highlights, I want the detail to be visible somewhat. That's not bad. And I'm going to do it on the control stick as well, just to highlight some of that detail. And that should work for that. Alright, so the next thing I want to do is paint the gun sight. Which is just flat black except for the lens part. Alright, I've got the gun sight painted, so now I can install it onto the instrument panel here. And that's a really snug fit. So I'm going to have to kind of carve that out a little bit. Sometimes it's just the thickness of the paint that can screw up the fit of a part. And that can be really problematic on some of the more tightly engineered kits. Whoops. All right, there it is. Finally got it in place. That thing was really, really snug. So put some cement from the backside, and you know what? On this one, I'm going to use this hot stuff. Maybe it'll burn through the paint a little bit better. So there is that. So now I can start installing some of these parts on the inside of the fuselage. But before I do that, I want to do a little bit of weathering in here. And what I'm going to do after I get all this dust out of here from sawing it apart, I'm going to mix me up a wash real quick. What I'm using is obtaining black and just some good old odorless mineral spirits. Let's mix this up and see how it looks. And this looks pretty good. So I'm just going to use it. I'm going to get this out of the way here. There we go. My desk is getting cluttered. Time to clean it up before I get too much further. So just going to see, by using some clear in the paint, it it moves along the edges a lot better, because to me a paint is so flat that when I try and do this, it just kind of absorbs into the flat surface of the paint, and that's not the look I'm going for. And the brush I'm using is a liner. Select Artiste Princeton brush from Hobby Lobby. So I'm just going to move along all of this stuff here, get this all outlined. It's kind of stark. I could have toned it down a little bit with a little bit of green, but because this is, you know, the cockpit and it's going to be closed up, I want it to be visible, and it wouldn't be if I toned it down too much. So I'm going to get all this stuff lined out on that and on these cockpit parts, and then we can start gluing this stuff together. Okay, so I've got that, all that stuff pin washed. So now I need to paint the back portion of the seat. So for that I'm using Vallejo Model Color Leather Brown. And I will mix that, put a little bit of distilled water here, take my handy dandy paintbrush. Let's see, I think I'll use this one here. Normally when I'm doing something in this color, I will use some oil paints, mainly rust colored oil paint, to simulate some wear and to give it a little bit of life instead of it just being just this brown, monotone brown color. But since I'm going to be using the pilot, I am not going to be doing that in this case. So it will just be brown and a pilot sitting on it. Whoops, just like that. Clean my brush. Okay, so I'm ready to start gluing this cockpit stuff in place. So the first thing I'm going to do, this isn't really necessary, I don't think, it's just something that I like to do, and that's scrape the paint off so I have a better bond. Well, what I think is a better bond. I could be wrong, but it's something I like to do. So I scrape the paint off the edges. Like that. I'll do that all the way around that and this. And then I like to make sure I have a good gluing surface here. So I'll do the same thing. Sometimes I've even been known to mask this stuff off. Crazy, I know, but I actually enjoy creating and utilizing masks. Some people like putting track links to get individual track links together for armor kits. I like making masks. So I'm going to get all that prepped and ready to go. All right, everything's all cleaned up and ready to go. So first thing I need to do is glue this part on here. And that goes there like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in place. And there's like there's a place there, like a groove or whatever you want to call it, where that fits. I want to make sure that's totally bottomed out on that. And then use the old Tamiya extra thin. Glue that there like that. So I'm going to hold that for a second. So I got that glued into place and it looks pretty good. So now, according to the instructions, I need to glue this part on this side. Now why they do it that way, I don't know, but hey, I'm not a model engineer, so I'm just going to do what it says. So I'm going to do the same thing. There's like little notches in these bulkhead things that fit this spar or whatever it's called. So that is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna hold that in place too, because I want to make sure it glues all the way up really well. So I'm gonna hold that. And then I'll glue the other part. So I want to make sure there's no gap along that edge. All right, so getting back to step 15 here where I glued this part on, I now need to glue on this part here, and I'll have to paint it. So this goes right there. Yeah, nope, sorry, right here. So I think it would probably be best if I painted that before I glued in place. That I got it stuck on a toothpick with a bit of blue tack. So let's see. Looking at my references, it's black. And let's see, it's black, and then this surface right here going along the outside of this, the outside of the circumference of this round part is silver. So I think what I'll do is I'll paint it black first and then do the silver. So for black, I'm going to use the AK 3rd generation rubber black. It's not going to take much. A little bit of my distilled water. I'll just paint it all black, and then I'll just paint the silver part. I'll paint over that. And while this is drying, I will scrape the paint from the area where this is going to be glued. If I can get to it, if not, I'll just glue it on top of the paint. Should be fine. There's a couple of channels in the back of this that match up with those ribs and spars or whatever they're called. All right, so that's dry. So let's get a little bit of silver here, and just like that. That'll work. All right, so I got that glued into place with after much wailing and gnashing of teeth, but it's in there. So there's that. So that takes care of steps 14 and 15 in their entirety. So then we need to do step 16, and that's glue that part in right there, which I've done. So now all I got to do is glue that part in and that part in. So let's see what we need there. We need A52 and A47. 47 are these tanks here, which need to be painted gray. And 52, which is right here. So I'm gonna have to look at my references again, because I'm sure that's not just all one color. In this case, black. So I'm gonna take a look at my references and see what color that should be, because I'm thinking those knobs on the end may be different colors, but who knows? I don't know. Maybe the British liked all black controls in their aeroplanes, but I'll take a look. Let me get this cleaned up first. So when checking my references, it depends. Some of them have red stuff, some of them have all black and just whatever. So what I'm going to do, just for a little interest, for the sake of it not being so boring looking, I am going to do it black and then do like the little knobs in red. So I shall get my paint out. And do the thing. You know what? For this one, I think I'm going to use my NATO black, which doesn't have to be thinned. Vallejo Model Air. Oh my lord. Okay, let's pick a brush. Whoops, pick a brush. This painted. All right, so I got these two tanks cleaned up, so I'll paint these gray, which is what is called for, and I'm using neutral gray Vallejo model color. And I probably painted part of that off the flipping camera, but sorry. All right, so we'll let those two items dry while I clean my brush, and then I'll do the knobs on there. Again, using Vallejo model color. Red. Again, this probably isn't in any ways accurate, but I just want to have some color on this thing so it's not just black only. Chances are I'm probably not going to be able to see the thing once it's installed anyway. But, you know. One thing I've noticed is there is a very marked lack of cockpit photos for the Mark 12. Either that or I'm just missing them. But in doing the Google thing, not seeing any. So I'm having to kind of use other marks of Spitfire to come up with a reasonable facsimilation this stuff should look. Alright, so now this part goes on the back of this. There's like a U-shaped protrusion with a hole in the middle where that little round thing fits in. So it should go just bingo, just like that. Wow, what do you know? That is just stellar. So I'm going to use for this one, I'm going to use this glue right here. Like that. Just like that. I think that looks pretty good with the red knobs. Breaks it up a little bit. Then, let's see, where did these tanks go? Okay, there's a little tab sticking out that's supposed to fit in that little teeny tiny hole there. So once again, I think it's not going to fit. It kind of does, but let's make a little modification here. So on this one, I'm actually going to use stupid glue, so I don't want to mess about with it. It's kind of hidden in the back there, and I just think that glue it on with this. And it should be fine. So let's put a little bit on there like that. And then line it up like that. And then let it dry. All right. Cool. All right, so that finishes 16. So the next part, and 17. So the next part is the propeller and then assembling the fuselage halves. So I think it's a good point to stop here on this particular episode. So next time when I come back, we'll start with 18 and the propeller and all that, and we'll move on with the fuselage. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and again, if you have any hints, tips, any of that kind of stuff, any experience with this kit, let me know. If there's any tricks I need to know about, and I'd really appreciate it. If not, just leave your comments and I'll get back to you as quick as I can. So thanks for watching, and as always, I will see you all later.